Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today, on this very grey and wet miserable day, I am back up the allotment and there's a few things which I'll be doing today. I need to thin out the radishes in the radish tank. I also need to earth up my potatoes and I'll be planting out some gladioli bulbs. I'm up the allotment this evening to try and tick a few things off of my ever-growing to-do list of things to do on plot 15C. The growing year has really set off now. I go to Wales for 3 weeks and then I come home and everything's just grown so quickly. I mean, we've had a few days of really nice hot sunshine and then a few days of rain, so that's just been a blessing to the garden because everything's just shot up. I mean, the onions are growing really well. They look nice and strong, and the broad beans have shot up about 2 foot, and there's even some little broad beans growing on the plants. There's one there which is about 3 inches long, and I just can't wait to harvest them. And of course there's loads of flowers on them as well, so hopefully there will be a nice harvest of broad beans because last year they weren't so productive. And the flower patch has started to look pretty now. There's some geum there which has bloomed, which I totally forgot about. I didn't even remember that it was there. And next door to that, some euphorbia is starting to look very pretty, nice and bright, especially on these grey, dull days. And there's lots of blossom growing on the apple tree. It's looking stunning and there's lots of blossom there. But unfortunately, if any baby apples start to grow on the apple tree, then what I will do is pick them off. Because I planted the apple tree last autumn, it's not even a year old yet. What I want to do is to focus all the energy on producing a nice, strong and sturdy tree rather than producing fruit. So by picking off the fruit that forms on it this year, all the energy can go into the tree itself, into producing a nice root system, and hopefully in the future I'll be rewarded with lots of nice apples. But for this year I'm going to be picking off the baby fruits because in the long run it will do the apple tree wonders. So yeah, everything's growing really well, but it just means that there's lots to do and my little allotment journal is starting to get full up of jobs to do, and the greenhouse is starting to get full up. There's things in the cold frame, there's lots of potting on and pricking out to do. It's getting very hectic and we've just been busy with the shop, and obviously I've been busy in Wales and I'm not complaining, but there's lots to do. So today I'll be thinning out the radishes, earthing up the potatoes and planting out some gladioli bulbs. So I'm going to try and do that before it gets dark, and that will make a little dent in the to-do list. So I'm going to get cracking before it starts to really rain. So 3 weeks ago I sowed my radish. I went to Wales and I came back to this. A completely overgrown radish tank. I've never grown radish before, but obviously I know that they grow quickly. I just wasn't expecting them to grow this quickly, and they look absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy with them. But what I'm going to do today is thin out the rows because there's 3 rows of radish in here, and I was a bit enthusiastic when I sowed the seed and they're a little bit squished. So what I'm going to do is thin them out today. I'll probably eat the thinnings. And somebody shared a recipe for some radish top soup, so if I get time then I will try and make that as well. You don't necessarily have to thin out your radishes, but obviously by thinning them out you will get a bigger radish to harvest. Obviously you don't want to harvest them too big, but if there's too many in a row then they obviously won't grow to their full size. So I'm going to thin them out because there's quite a few here now that are perfect. Like this one here. So by picking this one out, it's giving the smaller ones next door to it more chance to grow bigger, so I'll be able to harvest them in a week or so time. So this variety is called Scarlet Globe. So I will just pick a few out, just thin them out. Obviously take the bigger ones. They are perfect. I was a little worried about these because we've had quite nice weather. I was worried that they might dry out in the tank and they would split, but they're actually really, really good. I'm so happy with them. So I'll just take one more from that row. There's still some rather small ones in there, so they can grow now that the bigger ones have been taken out. So that's the Scarlet Globe variety. There's also Sparkler 3 and French Breakfast at the back. So I'll just thin them out like I did with the Scarlet Globe ones. And I'll be eating them with some cheese later, I think. Oh, that's a nice one. Wow. Now it's just started to rain, and it's that horribly drizzly rain that just completely soaks you. So I'm going to try and earth my potatoes up as quickly as possible. So the whole point of earthing your potatoes up is to not only protect the potatoes from the sunlight, which will of course turn them green and make them poisonous, but it also encourages growth, and you will hopefully get more potatoes from the plants if you earth them up, because of course you're tricking the plant into growing more because it has to keep re-emerging from the earth. I always earth my potatoes up, and my dad always earths his potatoes up. We tend to do it 2 or 3 times. It depends entirely on how much soil you have left, which is why we leave quite a large gap between each row of our potatoes, just because you have the soil there to cover up the emerging tips. Now I have actually left my first earthing up of the potatoes quite late because I was away in Wales for 3 weeks. They obviously popped up and they've been growing away, and I wasn't here to earth them up. So I'm earthing them up now, and really you should be covering the tips. But I am going to be saving the soil for the second earthing up. So I'm leaving the tips out, which should be okay now because it's the middle of May. We shouldn't have any frosts, fingers crossed. But if there are any risks of frosts, then I will scoot up here and earth them up quick. So yeah, it is basically just a matter of using the soil either side of the rows and covering the plants. Now, I think I've shown you this tool before. It's called a Chillington hoe. It's actually my dad's, but I borrow it all the time. I really should get my own one. Yes, it's a Chillington hoe, and this particular one is called a ridging hoe because it has the point. It's perfect for earthing up your potatoes, and I'm always using it. I'm just going to try and do this one here a bit more. So try not to go too near your potato plants, because obviously you don't want to damage the potatoes which are already growing. And remember to leave equal amount of soil to earth up each side of the row. Don't get carried away with one side, because you won't have any left for that side. That's that row nearly done. So I'll just do this bit. And then it's just these 2 rows. I stopped raining for a little bit, so I don't need to rush so much. So I have some unplanned flowers to put into the new flower bed here. Basically, I went to a garden centre with my dad to get some more sweet corn seeds, and obviously you can't resist having a look around when you go to a garden centre. So we were looking around and we came across the bulbs, which were half price now, and there were some Gladioli there, and you could get 5 bulbs for £1. So obviously I couldn't say no to that. So I bought 5 bulbs for £1. I honestly couldn't resist it. Now, it is too late really to put your Gladioli in. Really, you should have been doing it about a month ago, but it's not entirely too late, because now the chances of frosts have hopefully passed. These should do fine planting out now, but obviously all the garden books and all that tell you to plant them out in April, February time, but it's only the middle of May, so I'm going to give them a chance anyway. They're only £1, so you can't go wrong. So I only have 5, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 along here, I think, and then I might just put the other 2 over in the far back there. Now, I've forgotten obviously which bulb is which variety, but I did make a note of the varieties that I picked, so once they bloom I'll know which ones are which because of the colours. So the varieties which I have are red Traderhorn, pink Priscilla, orange Peter's Pear, and white Prosperity. So obviously there's a nice red, a pink, a really beautiful orange, and a white in there. And then there's also a double one, but I've forgotten which ones I picked up. So I know that there's definitely one of each. So once they bloom, I can put a label with the variety on it there, so I know for future reference. So I'm going to use my handy dibber again and try not to squash this feverfew, which I'm currently kneeling on. So you want to plant your Gladioli bulbs about 4 inches deep, and they need to be about 5 or 6 inches apart. But I'm going to dot these around so they won't really be very near each other. So I think I'll put one here because I didn't want to go too near the archway because the pumpkins will be growing up there and they go massive. Make the hole nice and big. So when you plant them, you want to put the tip at the top, and these are actually sprouting really nicely. Just need to make the hole a bit bigger. So he can live in there, and then just cover it back up. And actually what I'm going to do before I forget is get some labels, which I brought up with me. Some markers, should I say. They're just bits of slate, but it's just so I know where they are, so I don't plant another flower over the top. So I'm going to put one there, and then I'll put one about here, and then one there, and then I'll put two over at the far back. But they need to be 4 inches deep, and if you're planting them out in a row, then they need to be about 5 or 6 inches apart. And hopefully this summer, if not a little bit later than normal, I'll have some Gladioli to cut, which will be beautiful because they are very, very pretty flowers. So I'll just put these 4 in and then call it a day, I think, because it's starting to rain and it's yucky out here and it's getting dark, and obviously you can't garden in the dark. So I'm going to get these 4 in and then head home. One here. So that's it for today. I think I've done what I wanted to do today, which was thin out the radishes, and I've also got some nice tasty radishes to eat now, which is just perfect. I've also earthed up the potatoes and planted out the bulbs, so that's just a few things ticked off the very long to-do list which I have. But it's just getting to 9 o'clock now, and it's just getting dark. I'm absolutely loving these late nights because, I mean, you can stay up the allotment till 9 o'clock, which is just great because obviously we've been really busy with the garden shows and the Lavender and Leeks website, and we have 3 shows in a row lined up. One at the end of May in Kent, and then there's the Solent Gardeners Fair, and then there's Stansted Park. So it's going to be very busy. So these extra few hours in the day are just perfect, really. Especially when it's nice. Not so nice when it's like this, when it's that drizzly rain, but we can't have it all. And the garden needs it because we've had quite a few days where it's been quite dry and hot. So yeah, we mustn't complain about the wet weather because it saves us watering. So yeah, I think that's about it for this video. I'm going to go home and have a cup of tea and put my feet up for a little bit. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.